Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Waldo, and in this video we're going to be wrapping up the last few things that are keeping me from driving this truck. I have to relocate an intercooler hose and a radiator hose, and while that may not sound too complicated, it is going to require a fair amount of fabricating and some TIG welding, cast aluminum and stainless steel. This is Billy Bob, my GMC C3500HD. I paid $300 for this truck, essentially saving it from being scrapped. This project has turned into a full-on resto mod, complete with a paint job, a custom gauge pod, custom headliner, and leather bucket seats. The engine is a 24-valve 5.9 Cummins out of a Dodge Ram. The transmission is a 5-speed Eaton Fuller out of a medium-duty Freightliner. The goal is to end up with a heavy-duty truck for towing and hauling future projects. There's been a lot of welding, a lot of cutting, and, shall we say, a lot of persuading. I just finished building a flatbed for it, and I am really excited to get this truck on the road. So the hoses in question are below here, and I'm just going to remove the intake for easier access. So we have the intercooler hose coming out of the turbo going to the intercooler, which is rubbing on the frame right here. And on top of that, we have the lower radiator hose, which is rubbing on the intercooler hose. I guess we'll start out by draining the coolant, and then we can take these apart. Inside the wheel well, the radiator has a little drain plug right here, so we'll use this to drain it. I have a feeling this is going to take a while.
Eventually.
With that all drained out, we'll go ahead and remove this hose. What a bad boy, using a chrome socket with an impact. So the plan is to remove some material from this and then weld it back together. And what that'll do is it'll move this up higher away from the frame. This already doesn't actually fit perfectly on this, so it'll fit a little bit better if this is moved higher up. But another option is that I could actually try to reclock the turbine housing, and I could have it facing more in this direction. That would also remove it farther away from the frame here. There are a couple downsides to doing that. Number one, there probably is a dowel pin in this that's keeping it in this position, so I'd have to remove the dowel pin. And number two is that there's a linkage connected to the other side of this, and I think I could probably reclock the turbine housing a little bit without it being too much of an issue. But with the amount that I would have to reclock this, I think that that linkage might be an issue. Not bad, pretty clean cut. Yeah, so getting this part clean before I weld it is so important. First thing I'm gonna do is wipe it down with some acetone. And it is really tricky to do because of the texture of the casting, but I really wanna get rid of some of this oil and crap before I start rubbing it in. And then I'm gonna use a flap disc to sand this down, get rid of the oxide coating on the outside, and I'm also gonna bevel the edge a little bit. Oh, I did a little bit of testing on the piece that I cut out just to see what alloy of aluminum to use. And what did I do? I did 5000 series, that's 5356 here, and then this is 4043, and they both did pretty well, but I'm gonna use 4043. Yeah, so here's the finished product. You can tell I'm not a professional TIG welder, but it really didn't turn out that badly. Yeah, it looks pretty good to me. There is more than enough clearance under here. As for the lower radiator hose, I just have to come out of here. I have to make an immediate bend kind of in this general direction and then hook up over here. Yeah, so I bought some 2-inch exhaust tubing to make this hose. I got a 45 and a 180 here. And the nice thing about this is that I don't have to do wedge cuts in order to make bends. I can just cut out as much or as little of this as I need and then weld the pieces together to make the bends that I need. Oh yeah, and this is high quality 304 stainless, so it should resist corrosion for quite a long time. All right, let's see how well this thing cuts stainless. The last blade on this did not cut stainless very well, and that's one of the main reasons why I bought this blade. Also, this is a little bit sketchy because it may not quite be clamped in well enough, but we'll see. What's the worst that could happen? That actually worked pretty well, except that the end over here was kind of getting in the way of the motor. But no, it worked a lot better than the blade that came with this saw. All right, let's see if this fits and clears this hose. It does. There's definitely enough space in there, so that's good. And then over on this end, we're already pretty close to where it needs to go. I'm gonna have to use some bends to make it go out this way and then curve back in to go there. Yeah, so imagine these 3 pieces connecting onto that one like that. I think that'll give us what we need. All right, so let's start welding these together. Now I'm gonna use solar flux to shield the inside of the weld. I'll be using argon gas that'll shield the exterior, but I'm not gonna back purge the inside because that uses a ton of gas and argon's expensive. So well, then again, this is expensive too. Whatever, anyway, I'm using solar flux to shield the inside of the welds. Basically just take some of it and smudge it on the inside. We'll see if I can tack this together without any filler rod. No, not really. Yeah, so not the prettiest TIG welds in the world, but as long as it doesn't leak, we should be in business. Let's see how it fits. There we go. All right, that's not going anywhere. Time to fill this thing back up with coolant. So for coolant, I went ahead and bought this Fleet Guard coolant. Now this is a heavy-duty coolant with OAT technology, that's organic acid technology, and basically what this does is it means that you don't have to use a coolant additive. The reason why you would use a coolant additive is because it prevents cavitation of your cylinder liners. This stuff is a 50-50 mix, and it's very convenient because it should last the life of the engine. So with that, I think I am about ready to start bringing this for some longer drives on the road. I just have to go to the town hall to get some plates for it and call my insurance company first. Now before we go for a drive, it's probably a good idea just to check the water separator and see if there's any water in there. The truck had been sitting for, a couple years, so it's definitely possible that some water could have gotten into the fuel tank. That looks like that's pretty much only fuel. I don't think I see any water in there. So that's good. So it feels pretty great to be driving my truck. It drives pretty well. It's a little bit bumpy, but it's actually not too bad. It's better than I expected. So the speedometer is sort of working. It's not reading the right speed. That's why I have a GPS speedometer here, but it's reading about what I expected. It's reading a little bit less than half the correct speed, and that's expected because I think that the Eaton Fuller transmission that I have has 18 teeth on the reluctor wheel for the speed sensor, and the 4L80 transmission that this came with, I believe, had 44 teeth, or was it 40 teeth? Something like that. Either way, it's working, and it's working as expected. All of my gauges up here work. We have good fuel pressure. The boost gauge is working. We're pushing about 5 pounds of boost right now, just moving along at about 45 miles per hour. The pyrometer is working. That's, fluctuating between maybe 500 to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. And then the oil pressure gauge, which you can't see, is behind my phone here, and that is also working just fine. Just listen to that turbo sound. It's great. The vehicle is pretty loud, which I expected. I do have some of the windows open to keep it cool in here because I don't have the AC working yet. Now, coming up to this stop sign, I'm going to start out in first gear. Now, using first gear is so low, it's totally ridiculous and unnecessary, but it is really fun to go through all the gears, and I don't have anyone right behind me, so I'm not holding anyone up. It might be a little while here. It's a busy road. Gear change, two gear changes in the intersection. That's how low it is. Now, one of the things that I have not gotten to yet is getting the temperature gauge working. So what I've done is I have this scanner here, which is telling me the engine coolant temperature. It's staying, it's right around 185, which is pretty good. The other thing that this has is it's telling me the vehicle speed sensor input from the Dodge PCM. And it's telling me 7 miles per hour. Now that's obviously a lot slower than I'm going, but that actually is really good. What that tells me is that the VSSB, the vehicle speed sensor buffer, that is from the GM originally, which I have installed, that's telling me that it's sending a compatible signal to the Dodge PCM, so the Dodge PCM is able to understand that. Now I have to do a little bit of research and figure out how I can get that to match up so that it reads a closer speed to being, correct, but it's a really good sign. That's important because I want to be able to use cruise control, so there will be a future video on that. Yeah, this thing on these curvy roads, it is not a sports car. Definitely takes a little bit longer to get places than it would normally take. So right now we are in top gear, 5th gear. We're doing 43 miles per hour and we're about at 2,000 RPM. It's a little bit ridiculous. Actually, the top speed is about 67 miles per hour, limited by gearing. So the next video is actually going to be on re-gearing the rear differential to increase the top speed of the vehicle. Thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you in the next one. Now, for those of you who like a little bit of black smoke, I don't normally drive like this, but this is for you. Just wait until I get to 4th gear.